In 1984, NASCAR teams were using rocket fuel, soaking tires in chemicals, and possibly running illegal cars with NASCAR's approval. The sport's credibility with rule enforcement was questioned like never before. Teams thought an undercover FBI agent was killed on track. A voodoo witch doctor was hired to put curses on competitors, and a Warlock fan put a hex on Bobby Allison because he didn't get a free hat.
4, 3, 2, Happy New Year!
The year 1984 had been a point of anticipation throughout the 20th century, largely due to George Orwell's 1949 novel of the same name, which framed it as a futuristic milestone in humanity's future.
We shall prevail.
And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
The usual political divisiveness instead reflected an era of unity throughout the United States, displaying a momentary optimism in stark contrast with the literary version of 1984.
It's morning again in America.
Also, 1984 left a lasting mark on pop culture. The year was vibrant and reflected by its media. Its iconic movies have become cornerstones in film history. The television shows were memorable and served to define the era. The year has been called by some as the greatest in the history of pop music. MTV propelled musicians to even greater heights, and there was no better time to be a rock star. The Los Angeles Olympics made stars out of America's athletes and was considered a turning point for international competition. It was a year where even commercials for fast food could make an impact on culture.
Where's the beef?
Mondale to Hart. Where's the beef?
Where's the beef? What the hell's that supposed to mean?
Of all the seasons in NASCAR history, 1984 might be the one that doesn't get a lot of attention, but that would be a mistake. It too was a year of change, a year full of controversy, one with record-breaking competition, and a year when NASCAR continued its rise for motorsport supremacy, despite a frenzied atmosphere. The 1983 season ended with a veteran finally taking the big prize. Driving for Dyalla, Bobby Allison had finally won the Cup Series championship after nearly 20 years, and he overcame sabotage to do it. In 1982, Allison entered the finale at Riverside 22 points behind leader Walrip. On lap 65, he pitted with a shredded left front tire that had gone flat on the backstretch. On lap 88, he had another flat left rear at the same spot. This time, he went slow to preserve the tire. Back at the pits, they found a mysterious hole in the sidewall. In his 2006 book Miracle, Bobby Allison suspected a sniper hidden among the cars along the backstretch had shot out his tires. He said, quote, "If I had to guess, I would say that somebody shot at the car with a gun. I couldn't find the bullet, but I believe to this day that it was a bullet hole." In 1983, Allison entered Riverside with a 64-point lead over Walrip. After struggling with a bad fuel system all day, Allison won the championship by 47 points. At the shop, the crew found sugar in his fuel cell to clog up the fuel lines, likely poured by someone into one of the gas cans when it was filled. Despite initially believing it to be a fan, in Bobby's book he said that 20 years later he heard that a Junior Johnson crew member bragged about being the source of the sugar. Johnson was at the center of one of the biggest changes for 1984. After decades as a titanic figure in NASCAR, Junior had sold 50% of his team to a businessman, Warner Hodgson. Hodgson was a real estate developer in Southern California and loved NASCAR. A friend of many, he seemed to spend money just to support what he loved. He kept Richard Childress going with sponsorship from his company Black Gold Oil. During the 1979 Daytona 500, Hodgson's name was on Bobby Allison's car. When Neil Bonnett's team shut down that spring, Hodgson gave him sponsorship and followed him to the Wood Brothers. Warner loved putting his name on things, and by 1980, Riverside hosted the Warner Hodgson 400. A day before the Cup race was one for the Grand American Series called the Sharon Hodgson 200, named for his wife. Warner bought Phoenix International Raceway and named his 14-year-old son as vice president. He also bought Bristol, Nashville Fairgrounds, and had half ownership of Richmond and North Wilkesboro. The renamed Johnson Hodgson Racing expanded to 2 cars in 1984, adding Neil Bonnet to the number 12 car. After threatening to leave over having a teammate, Darrell Waltrip decided to stay. Both cars were sponsored by Budweiser at a cost of $2.1 million, a pairing known as Double Thunder.
The Junior Johnson Budweiser Chevys are roaring your way with Double Thunder. This Bud's for you.
Dale Earnhardt left Bud Moore's team and returned to Richard Childress Racing. Ricky Rudd completed the driver's swap by leaving RCR and going to Moore's. For contractual reasons, both teams were sponsored by Wrangler. Piedmont Airlines left RCR to sponsor Billy Hagan's team with Terry Labonte driving, who had lost Budweiser to Johnson Hodgson Racing. In November 1983, a new team was formed called All-Star Racing, co-owned by businessman Rick Hendrick and country music promoter C.K. Spurlock. Spurlock was the manager of Kenny Rogers and also owned the Gambler Chassis Company that built sprint cars and would ultimately remain as co-owner for only the 84 season. Jeff Boddine would drive the cars, while Harry Hyde would serve as crew chief. Perhaps the biggest story entering 1984 revolved around Richard Petty. After 25 years driving for his family team, Richard left at the end of 1983. A massive scandal had erupted at Charlotte in October when Petty earned his 198th win, but in post-race inspection was discovered to have been using an oversized engine, 381 cubic inches instead of the legal 358. And he also ran softer compound left-side tires on all 4 wheels. Taken separately, both were serious violations, but together it was a major controversy. The engine passed pre-race inspection by using a clever cheat to bypass NASCAR's test of using air displacement from a spark plug port to measure engine size. The team put wax in the valves to prevent it from sealing properly and get a false reading. Once the engine got hot, the wax melted and the big engine worked like normal. The tires were put on the car by crew chief Larry Pollard, who thought other teams were doing it too and would help them finish in the top 5. They unexpectedly won the race and couldn't hide the obvious cheating in inspection. They were fined $35,000 but were allowed to keep the win. The embarrassment was enough to convince Petty to leave the family team after previously considering a switch to MC Anderson's at the start of the year. First, it was said that Richard would drive for a new team owned by businessman Mike Curb. Then he was to drive for Raymock with Curb as a partner. Then, just 3 weeks before the season began, that fell through, and he was back with the standalone Mike Curb team, run by veteran crew chief Buddy Parrott, and leasing engines from Dyard, built by Robert Yates. As terms of the engine deal, if Petty was unhappy with his motor, he had the option to take Bobby Allison's on race morning, which enraged Allison. Cheating remained a major storyline throughout 1984, but unlike today, if it was avoidable, NASCAR would often keep it quiet. The Richard Petty scandal showed that labeling teams as cheaters could be damaging, so penalties were kept silent between NASCAR and the team. But if a penalty was a secret, then it was also easier for officials to give no penalty at all. This lack of transparency made teams believe their competitors got away with cheating. Bobby Allison told a story about watching inspection at Rockingham in 1982 or 83 and said, quote, "I watched them bring the winning car in and weigh it after the race. It was 400 pounds light. 400 pounds! But when the NASCAR inspector noticed me looking at the scale, he quickly covered it with a rag. And NASCAR never said anything about that to anyone. No penalty at all." He further said, quote, "NASCAR just seems to feel that by being inconsistent in the application of its rules, it can maintain better control over the competitors. Everyone knows that if they get caught with something, NASCAR might, just might, hit them hard." This mindset of secret penalties continued until July 1986, when competition director Dick Beatty declared, quote, "If you're caught, and most of the time you're going to be caught, you're going to get adverse publicity in the news media." But in 1984, cheating and unequal rule enforcement was a recurring topic, one that would often define a turbulent year. Qualifying for the Daytona 500 was on Sunday morning before the Busch Clash. Gail Yarborough won the pole with a new track record of 201.8 miles per hour.
Live from the world center of speed, the Daytona International Speedway, it's the Clash of '84, an event which annually gives us spectacular finishes. Ridley surprising on the inside.
Very surprising, Ken, as he came off a turn two. He got some help from Tim Richmond right behind him. Now Richmond pulls to the inside, makes his move.
3 wide. Down the inside, Tim Richmond in the red automobile going for the lead. The Ford Thunderbird of Buddy Baker on the outside. Neil Bonnet, who came from 15th last year, slides up into second spot. All right, it is a magnificent chess game that is being played here. Oh, trouble! Ricky Rudd slamming toward the wall. Crashing, rolling over, side over side.
Here is Ridley on the inside. He might have touched him, but sometimes, because of the compression of the air, here you see Rudd's car turning back the wrong way as it slid. The air got under it, flipped it back the wrong way. I think that it was a blessing that it didn't get into that wall, Ken. It started spinning away from him, just like a bucking horse, going in every kind of a direction. And, of course, Ricky holding on.
Here's the immediate report on Ricky Rudd. The report is that after that horrific crash you have just seen, he is simply shaken up. 1 lap to go. White flag is out. This is it for $50,000. Has Baker tried to save anything? Here's Bonnet coming to the inside. 3 wide behind them. Bonnet going to the inside. Cale Yarborough comes through. Baker falls to third.
Baker was a sitting duck, no question about it. He knew it. There was nothing he could do about it other than to try to draft back past him.
All right, keep your eye on number 28, Cale Yarborough, who's qualified for the Daytona 500 at 201 miles an hour. He's got 1 shot left. Here they come to the line. Yarborough on the inside. Bonnet throws the block. Give it to Bonnet. 2 years in a row, he wins the Clash.
The first driver to ever do so.
First driver.
To win 2 Clashes.
And he does it back to back.
Rudd suffered no broken bones, only bruised chest muscles and 2 black eyes that forced him to tape his eyes open just to see the track. When he returned to the garage on Monday, he placed the blame on Jody Ridley, saying, quote, "If I was not so bruised up, I would like to go over and punch him in the nose, but I'm afraid he would want to fight, and I couldn't handle that." Ridley said that Rudd got loose exiting the turn, and he couldn't avoid hitting him as he lost momentum. Dale Earnhardt returned to the ride he just left and helped practice Rudd's backup car on Monday.
Oh, the bubble, and in trouble is 07 LaJoy. Randy LaJoy slamming into the wall. Randy LaJoy out of Norwalk, Connecticut, destroying his automobile. Out of control, off turn 4. So similar to the 15 Ricky Rudd, but he collects the wall, which Rudd just missed. Sails bottom side at 190 miles an hour into the retainer, and the car is destroyed.
The unofficial report is that he was shaken, conscious, but he has been taken to the local Halifax hospital, be kept overnight for observation.
In Friday's consolation race for drivers that failed to qualify, the worst crash of the week happened when Nats Peters spun and was hit by Jim Hurlburt.
And then on Friday, an accident was compounded with a second car colliding with one that went out of control. An explosive fireball resulted.
Peters suffered only minor facial burns, but Hurlburt, who only decided to race that morning, was badly injured. He suffered 2 broken ankles, with doctors saying his right ankle looked like someone hit it with a sledgehammer for an hour. He had 2 badly broken jaws, broken teeth, and burns. Months later, he held an optimistic view, saying, quote, "I'll only be hurt for days and months. I still have my mind and can function as a human being. I'm thankful for that." He did return to racing a year later. During the dash race later that day, a fireman was hit on pit road and suffered a bruised leg. During the Busch Series race on Saturday, Neil Bonnet's crew chief, Doug Richard, was hit changing tires and suffered a broken leg, ankle, and nose.
This one saw just one major incident. A blown engine spins Dale Earnhardt right in front of Jeff Boddine. Watch 17. Darrell Waltrip near miss. Nobody hurt. Earnhardt goes out early. Boddine and Waltrip both stayed in the race, which saw 35 lead changes among 7 drivers. This is typical action. Sam Ard, 00, defending late model sportsman national champ, goes to the front. On the next to last trip down the backstretch, it's become the gang of 4. Ard holds the lead over number 83 Lake Speed. In third spot, Boddine, crumpled nose and all. Waltrip at the tail of the quartet. Suddenly, Waltrip throws the book out the window. Everybody else is watching the wall instead of their mirror. Waltrip sneaks from 4th place to 1st with 2 laps to go. Now that defies the typical Daytona strategy. Usually the leader on the last lap is a sitting duck for an inside draft pass by the 2nd place car. But on the backstretch, Ard tries to go outside. A surprise Lake Speed wiggles down low and grabs Waltrip's slipstream. It appears Ard should have taken his 00 the other way. As he goes to the top of the track, his drive stops cold. Boddine drafts under him. In less than a lap, Ard falls from 1st to 4th.
Out of 4, Waltrip in 1st. Lake Speed comes all the way down to the grass. He's trying to cut through. Waltrip wins it.
Daytona 500.
And now the President of the United States.
Start your engine. Thank you.
The President of the United States from the White House giving the command to fire the engine. Standing on their feet. You are inside the pole car. The 1984 Daytona 500 is underway. Yarborough to the point of turn 1. Battle for the lead. Give it to Terry Labonte. New leader, Cale Yarborough, back in front. Here's Terry Labonte going back by Cale Yarborough. Here they are, dead even. And the 3-time Daytona 500 winner, Yarborough, goes back in front. And here's Allison down the inside and going back into the lead. Bobby Allison sticks the Buick back in front. Back straightaway, Yarborough and Allison, they're at it again.
Well, Bobby Allison has coasted into the pits, Ken. It doesn't seem as if he has power. Your hood goes up.
Back with the leaders again. Here comes Petty on the inside. Richard Petty down low. Yarborough in the 28 car high.
Following him through.
Moments of joy and elation for Petty in the last half hour turned to sadness, tragedy. Car number 53 has just lost its engine while in the lead of the Daytona 500.
And going low is young Bonnet.
Here he is on the bottom side of the racetrack. Pulling, getting a good shot. That is Bonnet coming all the way up in the bottom. And here is Cale Yarborough trying to hustle out from that traffic. He's way back. And Cale Yarborough has fought his way back in front. You see Earnhardt running in 2nd.
Well, these guys at this stage of the game with another 40-odd laps, well, less 40-odd laps to go.
Oh, car spinning. It is Richard Brooks in trouble. He's getting hit and slammed into by Ron Bouchard. Out of control, he's still sliding and spinning out of turn 4. There are your leaders. Darrell Waltrip, who is now making his 12th effort at winning the Daytona 500. Yarborough hitchhiking on the rear bumper.
Well, of course, at this stage, you've got to ask yourself whether, in fact, he wants to lead now before the last lap. Having seen the leader in the last 2 major races, he'll lose out on the last lap.
Last year, Cale Yarborough with an amazing move in the last lap to set down Baker, and Bill Elliott came home in 2nd place. This is it, the last lap of the Great American Race. Waltrip still deployed 1st. Yarborough in 2nd. Yarborough edges to the outside. Back straightaway, final time. Down to the inside. The move he loves. Here he comes up to the inside. It is Cale Yarborough taking 1st as they get into turn number 3, coming for 4. Down to the inside. Here comes Earnhardt.
Earnhardt
trying for 2nd. Bonnet trying to find a place to run. They're coming to the finish line. At the line, it is Cale Yarborough. He's done it again.
Thank you, Lord.
And now you are driving to the most hallowed piece of turf in stock car racing. You are driving into victory lane at the Daytona International Speedway.
I'll tell you this, Hardy Chevrolet just did a fantastic job. Waddell just had the car working so good. We never had any problems whatsoever, and you know, all I could do was drive it and just went to the front.
Well, you got that move down pat.
I've been working on it a long time then.
After his flip, Ricky Rudd jokingly told Grand National's Scene that he was managing his pain by doing lines of cocaine. In reality, his ribs were wrapped in padding and covered in pain-relieving cream when the Richmond 400 began.
A sellout crowd on a cool, brisk, beautiful day here at the Richmond Fairgrounds.
Darrell Waltrip qualified himself for the 1985 Busch Clash by winning the pole with a new track record in the Hodgson-Johnson Chevrolet number 11. Since he joined Johnson 4 years ago, they've dominated short track racing on the Western Cup circuit, excepting here at Richmond, where Bobby Allison had won 3 in a row coming into the Miller 400. Allison was strong again, but for the second week in a row, his Robert Yates engine failed him. Rumors are floating around Bobby is very concerned about the Dyalla Engine Company building engines for Richard Petty. It was a typical NASCAR short track race with a lot of beating and banging, using up a lot of sheet metal. Meanwhile, Waltrip's car was working perfectly on the low side of the track. Neil Bonnet in car number 12, Waltrip's teammate, got a lap down early but found the high groove to his liking. He was the first car to actually pass Waltrip on the racetrack. Bonnet came back later to take the lead as the two Budweiser cars put on a stirring duel.
With 70 laps to go, Neil Bonnet was leading the race, but had an aluminum headlight cover come loose. NASCAR black flagged Bonnet, but a caution allowed him to pit under yellow.
The rule is that if the headlight door is missing, that you're getting an advantage of fresh air going inside the car. Junior Johnson says that Neil had an accident and knocked the headlight door out, which that's not illegal.
Bonnet's owner and interim crew chief, Junior Johnson, said the team was targeted by officials and that race director Bill Gazaway, quote, tried to take the win away from us. After the race, Gazaway said he made a mistake. But it's the principle of the thing. The same thing happened to Richard Petty at Daytona, and NASCAR didn't penalize him. Bonnet's unscheduled pit stop gave the lead to Darrell Waltrip, who fought a determined charge from Ricky Rudd for the win.
A caution with less than 30 laps to go set up the run to the finish. Rudd came in the pits, took on fresh tires. Waltrip didn't have another set of tires, so he stayed on the track. That proved to be the difference. Rudd found good traction with his Ford and took the victory.
Rudd's win came 2 weeks after his flip at Daytona. From victory lane, he said, quote, you have to regain your confidence after getting your head nearly torn off. Naming rights for the Warner Hodgson 500 at Rockingham were sold to Hodgson for $50,000. For another $50,000, he bought the TV rights to the race. Hodgson never found a network to broadcast the race, and it went untelevised. It would later be revealed that he never paid the money owed for the TV rights. Missing at Rockingham was Cale Yarborough, who was angry at track owner L.G. DeWitt. Yarborough crashed in both races there in 1983 and suffered shoulder and knee injuries in his crash in October. While Cale said he thought the track surface was too slick, DeWitt said Cale was getting too old and making more mistakes. Mad at the remarks, Yarborough said he'd never drive at the track again.
But the day didn't start out good for outside pole sitter Darrell Waltrip in car number 11, while Harry Gant pulled away in car number 33. Waltrip started backpedaling through the field. His left rear axle broke. Traffic jammed up behind him, causing Blackie Wangren to spin in car number 39. Sterling Marlin in car number 23 was also involved. It took Waltrip's crew 14 laps to install a new axle. Gant, Neil Bonnet in number 12, Terry Labonte in the blue number 44, Lake Speed in the white number 1, and Dick Brooks in the Ford number 90 traded the lead back and forth to the delight of the record 44,000 fans. The track stayed green for almost 300 laps.
Overcome with nausea and dizziness, Dale Earnhardt needed relief help from Connie Saylor, who later was involved in a crash and finished in 15th. Looking for his first win since 1973, Dick Brooks led 169 laps. He was driving for Junie Dunleavy, who had won only once in his 34 years in the sport.
Bonnet bit the dust with a carburetor problem which caused his car to catch fire. Tim Richmond was in the hunt in car number 27 until he crashed on lap 319. That bunched the field up. Nobody had paid much attention to Bobby Allison in car number 22, who had started back in 17th, but he was there. On lap 358, he and Brooks battled for third. They touched coming off turn 2. Brooks went round and round. Allison continued. Part of the steering system was bent on Brooks' Ford, which put him in the garage area. Then 13 laps later, the biggest crash of the day came when Lenny Pond blew the engine in his car number 4 going into turn 3. Harry Gant chose the wrong route through the mess. When the smoke had cleared, they had to red flag the race for about 35 minutes while the inside guardrail was replaced. But when the race resumed, Allison showed his strength in the Buick number 22 and won his first race of the 1984 season. There had been rumblings of problems in the Dyalla organization because of 2 blown engines in the first 2 races. Robert Yates now also builds engines for Richard Petty, who finished 4th. That didn't sit too well with Allison and some of the other crew members, but a meeting with owner Bill Gardner and the Rockingham win should ease the pressure.
I'm really thrilled. You know, it's been a tough deal, and we had a little bit of a bad start, but that old Dyalla crew came through. Old Robert Yates gave us plenty of ponies for under the hood and the whole deal.
The pace car is off the track. We're going to have a start for the Atlanta 500. The green flag out. Dale Earnhardt leading the Atlanta 500, just by a couple of feet over Cale Yarborough, the defending champion in the race.
Oh, this is
a tie for the lead.
Yes.
Literally a tie for the lead at this point in a 500-mile race.
And with Benny Parsons right there behind.
He tries Earnhardt again, gets the nose in front, and takes the lead. And here comes Benny. Side by side, racing for the lead. Yarborough up high. Earnhardt down low, just behind them. Benny Parsons, but now Earnhardt almost had him. Yes, Dale Earnhardt has taken the lead in the Atlanta 500, and there goes Benny Parsons, also trying to take Cale Yarborough. Benny Parsons making a move for the lead now, has never won this race. In fact, he hasn't won a NASCAR race in about 2.5 years, although 11 years ago he was the Grand National Champion. But now, at least momentarily, he's got the lead here. Watch Earnhardt, the high car though, and watch Cale Yarborough coming down below Earnhardt, moving into second place, losing second place. This is really going to be something. The white flag is out, but the winner will be the man who once upon a time drove a taxi cab in Detroit. And a sizable fare Benny Parsons will pick up today for his day's work because he's won it. Look at the battle for second, and Earnhardt just nosing out Cale Yarborough for second place in the race.
Benny Parsons scored his 21st and final win, but the race was marred by a scoring dispute. The controversy started when a caution came out with 20 laps to go. Darrell Waltrip was 2 laps down, raced Benny Parsons back to the caution to get 1 lap back. It was close. Waltrip and Parsons agreed that Waltrip was first to the line. NASCAR scorers were unsure, with the chief scorer in the infield calling up to the control tower to make the decision. The tower didn't see who was first. There was no video replay. The race continued, and Waltrip finished in 5th. But 45 minutes after the race was over, NASCAR penalized Waltrip a lap and said that he hadn't beat Parsons to the line. This moved Waltrip back to 10th, a difference of 21 points. As Waltrip finished second in points the year before by 47 points, the change could have championship implications 8 months later. This outraged Waltrip and Junior Johnson, whose appeal was unsuccessful. Johnson said, quote, "It just seems like the more mistakes NASCAR makes, the harder they work to cover up." During the off week, 4 drivers were separated by 9 points at the top of the standings. Leader Terry Labonte took the week off to race in IMSA's 12 Hours of Sebring. Driving a Camaro, Labonte had won the GTO class in the 24 Hours of Daytona and was able to again take the victory at Sebring. Labonte was among numerous racers and dozens of FBI agents investigating another driver. They were looking for Christopher Wilder, whose Porsche 911 was in the race, but he wasn't. Wilder was days away from landing at the top of the FBI's most wanted list. Violent serial killer, Wilder killed at least 8 women between the time he raced in the 24 Hours of Daytona in early February and his death in mid-April.
The front row belonged to a pair of young lions with Ricky Rudd on the pole and Terry Labonte outside. Waltrip had to settle for the third starting spot after blowing a tire and hitting the wall on his second qualifying lap. Labonte got the jump at the start and led through the first 80 laps with Waltrip and Bobby Allison in pursuit. While lapping cars on the 97th circuit, Waltrip and Kyle Petty touched sheet metal in turn 3. The yellow brought in all the leaders to the pit area. On the restart, Tim Richmond enjoyed the lead, but only momentarily as Darrell Waltrip motored by. Waltrip continued to lead with Bobby Allison a close second. On lap 187, Kyle Petty, Harry Gant, and Neil Bonnet mangled some sheet metal in a tangle in the backstretch, but all three continued. By the midway point, Bobby Allison was showing his supremacy. He continued to lengthen his lead with Waltrip, Labonte, and Dave Marcus dicing for second, third, and fourth. By lap 443, Allison had over a lap lead on Waltrip when he made what was thought to be his final pit stop. But he shut off the engine, the crew pushed the car behind the pit wall and went to work on a broken axle. 25 laps later, Allison rejoined the race to prove he still had the fastest car, although far behind. Darrell drove the Budweiser Chevrolet under the checkered flag 1.8 seconds in front of Terry Labonte, with Ron Bouchard third. Dave Marcus, with his best ride of the year, finished fourth after starting 10th, and Tim Richmond rounded out the top 5. Darrell Waltrip and Junior Johnson continued their dominance of the high-banked half-mile Bristol Speedway. Waltrip won his 7th straight race at Bristol when he took the checkered flag in the Valleydale 500.
We greet you from the Brushy Mountains in western North Carolina, near North Wilkesboro, and the green flag is out. Neil Bonnet looking to the inside of Ricky Rudd coming off of turn number 2. Now as they come out, they bump slightly, and it's a dead heat as they cross the start-finish line and complete lap number 2. And we have a spin up in turn number 3. Several cars are going to be involved in this one. The track is completely blocked. Among those involved in the accident, Richard Petty, Mike Alexander, Tommy Ellis, Dean Combs.
Ricky Rudd has just taken over the lead of this race. By the way, we have trouble. Tommy Gale is stalled over in the second corner.
I'm not sure whether it is raining at this time, but it has been sprinkling during the last few laps. And we have a spin up in turn number 4. Tommy Gale has spun once again. What a story as far as the early part of the Grand National season is concerned. Ricky Rudd leading this race has already a victory in his pocket, having won at Richmond. But we have to remember that tremendous crash. And we have a spin back in the backstretch, or actually in turn number 2. It's Phil Parsons. Everybody's going to come in at the same time, and it really depends on who gets out first as to where they're going to fall into position on the racetrack. Tim Richmond really beat everybody, and so this does shuffle the standings, and now Rudd is going to have to work for a win. Tim Richmond is the leader with Harry Gant second, Ricky Rudd third, Terry Labonte fourth, and Kyle Petty fifth. But you know, you really got to feel sorry for Ricky Rudd, who was so strong throughout most of this race, but when that last yellow flag came out and he made what appeared to be a good pit stop, but just got out behind Richmond and Gant and hasn't been able to close in the distance.
You know, if Richmond goes on and wins this race, he is the 10th different winner in a row, which is a new record.
Out of turn number 4, onto the main straightaway, Tim Richmond wins the Northwestern Bank 400.
Lots of people waiting for you in victory lane. You got one last comment?
Yeah, like old Milwaukee says, it doesn't get any better than this.
Okay, Tim Richmond's got to get to victory lane. That's win number 4 for this guy, his career, Grand National competition.
After the race, it was discovered that 4th place finisher Terry Labonte was using a left side tire on his right front. Reminiscent of Richard Petty's violation at Charlotte last October, the softer tire compound gave added grip. Crew Chief Dale Inman claimed this was Goodyear's fault, and the team didn't check the tire code before putting it on the car. The NASCAR rulebook stated that they could have been disqualified, been given a points penalty, or even been suspended. Instead, NASCAR chose to fine the team $2,000. But some felt NASCAR was trying to cover up the violation, as this penalty was only announced after media members approached NASCAR about it. This created an outrage from other teams who thought they should be fined like Petty was last October. Tim Richmond said, quote, "It's another black eye for our sport. NASCAR is cheating the fans by not enforcing the rules the same for everybody. It's awfully sad." Darrell Waltrip said, quote, "This is supposed to be one of the worst violations in the book, and the penalty should be severe. After the petty deal at Charlotte, NASCAR said anyone caught with illegal tires could lose all their points, be disqualified, all kinds of things. Now this happens, and what's the point of just slapping them on the hand? But you can't expect NASCAR to live up to their word. It's like we're living in one world, and they're all in another. NASCAR didn't tell the truth about what happened in Atlanta, and NASCAR has tried to cover up this too. Junior Johnson was even angrier, saying, quote, "The situation is 100% clear. NASCAR isn't enforcing its rules, and NASCAR is losing its credibility. If we had got caught using an illegal tire, NASCAR would have disqualified us. They'd have thrown the book at us. This shows NASCAR has a double standard of justice. We are not racing under the same rules as everyone else. This is the second time in 4 weeks that NASCAR has done something like this. They're stabbing us in the back, and sports writers across the country are letting NASCAR get away with it. They should be writing the truth about NASCAR and not letting Billy France Jr. get away with this." He further said, quote, "While I have no interest in taking them to court, I can see that somewhere down the road somebody is going to have to legally challenge NASCAR. They think that nobody can take them to court and win. But they're just not enforcing the rules the same for everybody. In fact, they don't even run the races by the rules." While this controversy was ongoing, defending champion Bobby Allison set a world record. 2 days after the race, Allison went to Talladega with his son Davy's ARCA Pontiac. Allison's friend Steve Webster owned a trailer company and convinced Bobby to pull a trailer around the track with his car. The previous world record for fastest trailer was 115 miles per hour, which Allison shattered at a speed of 164 miles per hour before a tire started to come apart.
There's been a lot of adjectives about this racetrack over the years. Most of them you couldn't air. Some of the milder ones are the track that's too tough to tame, the lady in black, and certainly today was no exception. It didn't take long for that mean old track to reach out and start biting. Pole sitter Benny Parsons lost control on the first lap and hit the wall.
The least thing can get you in the wall. You go in turn one 1,000 times, the 1,001st time it's liable to reach up and bite you.
On lap number 3, Dick Brooks in number 90 spun in turn 3, causing quite a traffic jam. Besides Petty, Bobby Allison in number 22, Ron Bouchard in number 47, and Jeff Boddine in number 5 were all involved. Petty and Bouchard were able to make repairs and continue. Allison lost 34 laps getting his Buick back on the track. Darrell Waltrip in number 11 couldn't believe he was able to move from his 9th starting position to the lead during all of that. He had to figure it was going to be his day. Tim Richmond charged from 13th to 2nd in his Pontiac number 27 before the lady in black reached out for him on turn 4. It wasn't through with him either. His crew made repairs, he got back in, but this time she got him on the backstretch. Richmond said, "That's enough, just let me get out of here." Dave Marcus had assumed the lead in number 75, but his turn of fate came too as he and Buddy Baker tangled in Ford number 21. The race was stopped for rain after 108 laps, but that didn't cool the lady in black. As if she hadn't done enough under the green flag, she reached out and got Buddy Baker during the caution. Also involved in that freak deal were Joe Ruttman in number 98, Terry Labonte in number 44, and Rusty Wallace in number 88. You would think that old lady would loosen her grip, but not so. Here we go again, this time in turn 1. She decided to get some of those that done been got, like Dick Brooks, Rusty Wallace, and Jeff Boddine. Greg Sachs in number 51 and Buddy Arrington in number 67 also got stung. D.K. Ulrich almost got upside down in car number 6. Amazingly, there were no injuries, but most of the cars in the race looked like they'd been in a demolition derby. Darrell Waltrip was building laps on the leaderboard. His strategy was just to stay out of trouble. Lake Speed in car number 1 ran his best race ever and was a threat to Waltrip until the valve train failed in his Chevrolet with 45 laps to go. So the lady in black smiled on Waltrip to give him his second win of 1984 and his first big track win since October of 1982.
Today, the Sovron Bank 500 from the Martinsville Speedway.
Pace car leads the field off turn 4.
They are about 100 yards from the start-finish line. Green flag is out, and the Sovereign Bank 500 is underway. Ruttman comes up to the gearbox quickly, jumps out front all by himself. Labonte dives now to the inside, moves into the number 2 spot, forcing Gant to the outside lane.
Mike Alexander spun and hit the wall coming out of turn number 4. Other yellows involved Harry Gant and Tommy Ellis, Richard Petty twice, a Smoky Dave Marcus on a couple of occasions. And Tim Richmond, Dick Brooks, Rusty Wallace, and Terry Labonte in a turn 3 accident that breaks Labonte's suspension and drops him back to second in the current point standings. Tim Richmond got back into the race, but spun again later, coming out of turn number 4, narrowly missing the pit wall. Ricky Rudd, already a winner this year at Richmond, passed Bobby Allison and continued to lead for nearly 100 laps, but his chance for victory ended when his Ford stalled on the backstretch. The late stages of the race came down to a battle between early leader Bobby Allison and Jeff Boddine. But with just 48 laps to go, Boddine used the slow-moving Rudd to pass Bobby and chalk up win number 1. Ron Bouchard passed Allison for a second-place finish. Kathy Boddine cried tears of joy while husband Jeff was smiling for the cameras in the winner's circle.
You know, a 500-lap race on a half-mile racetrack, you just got to be steady and stay out of trouble, and we did that, and Harry Hyde had the car running real steady, and there at the end he put a little more into it. I don't know how, but it was beautiful.
Rick Hendrick has spoke of how his team was ready to shut down after Martinsville and needed a miracle to keep going. As it turned out, none of the owners were at the track to celebrate. Hendrick was at the Greensboro Coliseum, attending a sermon from Jimmy Swaggart. He learned of the win on the radio in the parking lot. C.K. Spurlock was listening to the radio on his boat in Tennessee. Unseen to all, Neil Bonnet's 5th-place finish was a result of a tough performance. On lap 80, Bonnet was passing a lapped car on the outside when it turned right and hit him. The steering wheel spun and caught Bonnet's right hand in it. After 2 laps, he had to drive with his knee while he popped his thumb back into place. He drove with a sore hand the rest of the race, and afterwards discovered that his right wrist was broken. The injury would plague him for several months. Darrell Waltrip led the points at the end of April as he chased his 3rd championship in 4 years. After Daytona's many violent crashes, NASCAR looked at ways to slow cars for Talladega. Options included smaller carburetors, restrictor plates, or even going to 311 cubic inch engines for 1985. Ultimately, they decided against any changes. Perhaps it was good that they didn't, because not only was Talladega a safe race, but it broke the record for the most lead changes in NASCAR history with 75.
Cale Yarborough grabbed the pole position with a record speed of 202.692 miles an hour, and that set the stage for what the experts said could be the fastest stock car race in history. The 115,000 fans that packed the Alabama International Motor Speedway for the 15th annual Winston 500 saw one of the most competitive Winston Cup events ever. Cale Yarborough's lead faded on the first lap as number 2 starter Bill Elliott in car 9 jumped into the lead at more than 200 miles an hour. That started a chain of lead changes that kept the fans on the edge of their seats. Benny Parsons, Buddy Baker, Cale Yarborough, Richard Petty, Harry Gant, Bobby Allison, Terry Labonte, Ron Bouchard, David Pearson, Phil Parsons, Dale Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, and Rusty Wallace all took a crack at the lead at the world's fastest track. Last week's winner, Jeff Boddine, in car 5, saw his hopes for victory go out the window when he blew a tire and hit the wall coming out of turn 4. 11 laps later, Dale Earnhardt in car number 3 also blew a tire. He, however, suffered minor damage and raced on. As the laps ran down, gas became a problem. Leaders Parson and Baker had to pit with just 10 laps to go. That left Gant and Yarborough. Yarborough's crew figured he would run out of gas on the last lap, but Cale went for broke. Coming out of turn 4, his car started to sputter. As he crossed the finish line, his engine ran out of gas, but not before beating Gant by a fraction of a second. The 28 car had to be pushed into victory lane. With a champagne spraying Cale Yarborough at the Alabama International Motor Speedway, I'm Bob Pierce reporting.
The Nashville 420 would be remembered for a confusing finish, one that took days to decide the winner.
Here's the pace car coming in, and we're about to go green. Down into turn number 1. Give it to Waltrip.
Neil Bonnet is also in a Junior Johnson car, but the thing to remember is that Bonnet has a broken thumb. He broke it 2 weeks ago in a short track. His crew chief, Doug Rickard, has a broken leg. He broke that at Daytona in a pit crash. They joked earlier that they were going to have to get handicap parking. There goes Bonnet up the outside.
Bonnet, using a little bit of a high lane there, finds his way into first.
Neil Bonnet had dominated the race, but as they approached the finish, Jeff Boddine was flying.
Jeff Boddine is attacking. 408 laps complete. Boddine is beginning to make his move to win the Nashville 420. There's the block being thrown by the leader, number 12, Neil Bonnet. Boddine right there, works up alongside another time. Wheel to wheel, here they come for the lead, down toward the finish. It's Jeff Boddine on the outside. He sticks his nose out in front. Bonnet stays with him. Back they go into turn number 1. Neil Bonnet squiggles just a little in the first and second turn. Boddine is trapped on a lap car. Benny, how about those apples?
I just couldn't believe he was going to.
Oh, number 12 is in trouble. Spinning, crashing into the wall. It is Neil Bonnet all the way around. Car number 7 just getting through and crunching the tail end. They race back to the yellow. Bonnet has taken on some damage.
Here comes the leader. Boddine is in the pits.
Going to give up first place.
Darrell Waltrip did not pit when they crossed the start-finish line this time again. 4 laps to go.
4:16 goes up on the board, and there are 4 to go. Waltrip squirts out in front. Here comes Bonnet moving up through. He goes around car number 90. Waltrip pulls away. 10-car length advantage. Bonnet goes to the outside on Richard Petty. Waltrip going down into the turn. Battle is for second place. Wheel to wheel they go, and Bonnet takes it. Trying to move in on his teammate.
Oh,
and we've got a bad crash on the back straightaway. 3 cars into the wall coming out of turn number 2. Well back from the leaders. Coming around for a white flag and a white and a caution. It's over. 88 Rusty Wallace has crashed. Number 88 Wallace finishing up in a blaze of sparks and a car on fire. It is car number 22. Allison's car coming down for the finish. The winner is going to be car number 11 will win it. 12 pulled up beside him, but they were under caution. Richard Petty is crashing, coming out of turn number 4. Richard Petty has just spun and looped it, and his car lies right in the center of the track. An incredible finish.
Oh, Kyle Petty just missed it. Oh, he spins and his
Kyle Petty has crashed the main straightaway trying to miss his father. Here's Bobby Allison backing down on pit road across the line. Well, I've seen a lot of finishes in a lot of years, and I have never, ever seen anything like this.
I don't believe it. I don't believe this.
Now number 11 has just come to a halt. Hey, did I win it?
Yes,
crowd is
it.
on their feet. I'm sure he won it.
I'm sure he
Caution was out,
flag.
and he will go to victory lane because the caution came out as the white flag had been thrown the previous lap.
They're saying that Neil Bonnet won the race.
And now they're showing on the board that Neil Bonnet won the race. Here's the 11 car coming down. Now they're taking the number down and they're putting up number 11.
They're putting up. I think Darrell Waltrip won the race, as I said a moment ago, kid.
Now they're rolling 12 back.
They put 12 on the board again.
This is going to be one they're going to talk about for a long time to come. Here they are coming to the stripe, and there's the car number 12 out there. Question is, which is the flag?
Okay, now he beat him to the start-finish line on the 420th lap, but my opinion is that the caution flag was out on the 419th lap.
Well, the first guy to victory lane is Neil Bonnet. How long it'll take to find out who won the race, maybe another question. Ken?
You know, the last few laps I had a flat just before that last caution is the reason I spun out. And after that, I couldn't even see how many laps was left or what. I knew I just had to try to get back. I don't know what happened.
It's not what I understand. It's what's right and what I saw. The white and the yellow came out together. That's the end of the race.
Here's the ruling, and it comes right out of the NASCAR rule book.
I'm reading out of the NASCAR rule book under the caption white flag. When the white flag is displayed, it means the leader has started his last lap. When the yellow flag is displayed during the white flag lap, all cars will be scored on the basis of the position in which they cross the start-finish line after receiving the checkered flag.
So on the last lap, you race back to the checkered flag.
Exactly. I did not know that rule existed. So Neil Bonnet has won the race.
Neil Bonnet has defeated Darrell Waltrip in a squirmer here tonight in Nashville.
Darrell Waltrip argued that it doesn't matter if it's the last lap. He took the caution flag as the leader. And in all other scenarios, the racing stops once the leader takes the caution flag. He paid a $200 fee and filed an official protest with NASCAR. On Monday night, officials agreed with him and awarded Waltrip the win. Speaking a few weeks later, Bonnet said, quote, "If they had told me after the race that I was second, I'd have said fine. But when they said that I had won, I asked them 4 times if they were sure, and they said yes. They had me believing it. Then they called me at 10:30 Monday night and said they had changed their minds. It was handled very poorly. I think we lost a lot of credibility that night, and I felt like I was the scapegoat."
For
the first of 500 trips around this incredible mile speedway. Green flag is out. Here goes Allison looking underneath the Canadian driver, Trevor Boyes, for the lead. And he won't get it coming off the corner. Labonte coming up on the outside, and Harry Gant. Looks like rush hour traffic is over. 6 cars fight for the lead. Allison will get it on the bottom of the racetrack, and they're all stacked up in the high groove now behind Trevor Boyes. Harry Gant tries to take the lead away from Bobby Allison, but Gant is on the handling part of the racetrack, and smoke pours from the tires on Allison's car as he loses the lead.
Harry's car seems to be handling quite a bit better than any car in the racetrack. He's very, very strong. Trouble on the Harry Gant car. He's smoking down the front straightaway.
Concern in the Gant pits. He has dominated the middle portion of this race, but that is not tire smoke. That big plume of smoke from the back of the car. Could be engine, transmission, rear end. Uh-oh, here goes the field right on by the Skull Bandit machine, and he ducks it down on pit road.
This should be a pretty good race between Elliott and Richard Petty. They both have been very, very strong all day long.
Richard Petty on the inside goes for the lead and puts the STP Pontiac in front. But for Harry Gant and for a while Bill Elliott and Bobby Allison, it's been Petty the second half of this race. And Richard can just about coast home from here. Richard Petty comes off turn 4, takes the checkered flag, and wins the Budweiser 500. Richard Petty has won the Budweiser 500. His 199th career victory in NASCAR Winston Cup racing, and his first win of the 1984 season.
With Richard Petty now at 199 wins, every race that followed could be the site of his monumental 200th victory. The World 600 weekend began with a thrilling Busch Series race.
It may have been the greatest late model sportsman race in history Saturday at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Tim Richmond, driving Jeff Boddine's number 15, led from the pole and held on till the first caution on lap 12. During the next green, Ron Bouchard assaulted Richmond's lead door to door, finally forcing the number 15 to cave in when a valve cover gave way as Ron Bouchard sped away with the lead. Following lap 84, with Ron Bouchard out front and alone, Allison and Earnhardt fought nose-to-nose lap after lap for a distant third. Lap 130, the leaders begin to pit under green, all but Bouchard. Dale Jarrett loses control in turn 4, allowing Bouchard to pit under caution. Now it's Bouchard's race, alone in the lead lap. 36 miles from the end, he blows and spins. Following and a lap down, Waltrip 2 is out of control but recovers quickly. It's a new race. The crowd is on its feet and screaming as 4 drivers exchange the lead 7 times in the final 22 laps. Allison, then Lake Speed, Earnhardt, Allison, Waltrip. The last lap, Waltrip leads. Allison charges in turn 3. They brush. Speed moves up in 4, and all 3 hurtle down the tri-oval. The crowd roars. Allison and Waltrip bash together. It's Allison by a foot, Waltrip second, Lake Speed third, and a record 87,000 spectators lose control, breaking into hysterical pandemonium.
A record crowd of 150,000 fans turned out at the Charlotte Motor Speedway this holiday weekend for the 25th anniversary of the World 600. Harry Gant in car number 33 started from the number 1 spot, but before 2 laps were complete, Darrell Waltrip in car number 11 grabbed the lead. From there, the lead changed hands several times, with Terry Labonte, Bobby Allison, Dale Earnhardt, and Cale Yarborough all taking a crack at the lead. The first caution came out on lap 221 when Trevor Boyes in car 48 and Terry Labonte in car 44 tangled in turn 3. 27 laps later, rain soaked the speedway and the second caution appeared. Several laps after that, Darrell Waltrip ran over some debris and crashed on the backstretch. At the same time, the rains came again and the race was stopped for a short period. When the race resumed, Cale Yarborough in car 28 was clearly the man to beat, and Bobby Allison in car number 22 took on the challenge. Late in the contest, Jimmy Means crashed on the backstretch, and that brought the pack together again. Allison and Yarborough were locked in a battle to the finish. Door handle to door handle, they raced until 16 laps to the end. Yarborough's engine went up in smoke in turn 1. His hope for his first World 600 victory was gone. Allison breezed to the checkered flag, several seconds ahead of Dale Earnhardt and the rest of the pack.
Bobby Allison went 82 laps at the end of the race without pitting. The fact that his 22-gallon fuel cell took him 123 miles was hard to believe, and had competitors thinking he had hidden fuel. Darrell Waltrip said, quote, "That's ridiculous. In fact, theoretically, on a 22-gallon tank, that's impossible. NASCAR has caught him with a big tank a couple of times, but apparently not lately." NASCAR tore Allison's car apart looking for hidden fuel lines, but found the car was completely legal. Neil Bonnet's team installed power steering to help with his broken wrist, but the system failed during the race, and Bonnet's injury was aggravated even further. It looked as if Richard Petty might get his 200th win at Riverside when he led 15 laps midway before breaking a rear end with less than 30 laps to go. That set up a fight for the win between Terry Labonte and Tim Richmond. Racing for the lead with 7 laps to go, Labonte and Richmond touched and sent Richmond sliding off the track and later to the pits to replace a tire. That left Labonte unchallenged, and he won by 9 seconds. It was a meaningful win for Labonte, who in November 1982 survived a crash at the track that some called the worst single-car crash they had ever seen. In it, he suffered a broken nose, broken ribs, broken foot, and broken leg. Resting his broken wrist, Neil Bonnet got out of the car when the green flag waved and was replaced by Benny Parsons, who drove to a second-place finish in relief. The win pulled Labonte within 15 points of leader Darrell Waltrip. Dale Earnhardt and Ricky Rudd were both close behind, and Bill Elliott was 103 points back. The Pocono pole sitter was a legend in an unfamiliar car. David Pearson was hired as Bonnet's relief driver this week. Despite not driving at Pocono since 1978 and only getting 15 laps of practice, Pearson took his 113th and final pole.
Lake speed on the inside of Neil Bonnet, car number 12, across the start-finish line. Harry Gant is right behind, in fact touching Lake speed as they go down the straightaway and head for that first turn. The yellow flag is being displayed over the racetrack.
Bonnet is all grins, but boy, he's coming out of this car like a rocket. You can see his right wrist was in a cast. David is now getting in the car. The crew is pushing it, and they're off, and the driver change has been accomplished. David Pearson is now in the car.
Dale Earnhardt moving alongside Cale Yarborough, challenging for second down the north straightaway into turn number 3. Dale Earnhardt picks up the second position. Down the straightaway, Earnhardt moving alongside Labonte, and Earnhardt will be shown as the leader of lap number 19.
3 abreast in turn 1. Let's watch this. Close going, but they get through again. Earnhardt gets a nice send-off going down to the bottom of the banks. He squeezes underneath Yarborough coming out of the first turn. Never say die on the outside. He picks up the draft of Labonte.
Now he's his problem on the Long Pond straightaway, and at the end of that, he does sneak around Harry Gant. So it is Cale Yarborough back on the point here. Harry Gant would like to take the lead back. He pulls alongside Cale Yarborough, and Harry Gant has the slight advantage. Gant back into the lead. Cale Yarborough second. Dale Earnhardt has moved back up into third. Now Cale Yarborough darts the car to the left and passes Harry Gant on the north straightaway. Gant will have nothing to do with it. They're side by side as they go into turn number 3. There isn't very much room here for 2 abreast racing, but by golly, they do it. Off of the turn, onto the straightaway, and Yarborough and Cale Yarborough and Earnhardt were side by side, and it looked like that they were fighting to maintain control of their cars, but Yarborough maintains the lead.
Once again, the race featured a scoring controversy. The caution came out during green flag pit stops with less than 50 laps to go. Harry Gant was a leader, but had already passed the start-finish line when the caution came out, meaning he continued at full speed. Back in those days, pit road was not closed when a caution came out, and teams could pit as soon as a caution waved. Gant came around and went into the pits, followed by Bobby Allison and Dale Earnhardt. After the pit stops, the pace car came on track, unsure of who to pick up as the leader. The pace car came out in front of Allison, trapping him a lap down.
Watching the final lap, Cale Yarborough takes the white flag and now has less than 2.5 miles to go. Will the fuel hold for Cale Yarborough? Here he comes off the third turn and down the straightaway. He crosses the start-finish line under full power, and Cale Yarborough has won the Vanscoy Diamond Mines 500.
Allison finished the race second on track, but a lap down. Allison was angry at NASCAR's mistakes and believed the pace car came out at the wrong spot. Feeling that he had been hurt by scoring mistakes in the past, he said, quote, "What gripes me is that I've supported them 100% in my career, yet it seems that I'm always the guy that comes up short in something like this." After 4 years of inactivity, the IROC Series returned to competition one day before the Cup race at Michigan. Despite his injury, Neil Bonnet took the win. The scoring controversy from Pocono was unresolved by the time the series went to Michigan a week later. In the pre-race drivers' meeting, Bobby Allison got into a heated argument with officials Dick Beatty and Harold Kinder. When the meeting began, Allison yelled out, quote, "We are all wasting our time in here right now, Dick Beatty. Why have a meeting?" He further asked, quote, "Are the people who make the decisions at this meeting?" And, quote, "How can we get somebody to take responsibility for their mistakes? I'm asking you. We don't have anywhere else to talk but right here. How can we get you people to take responsibility for your mistakes? Tell me. Everybody in this room would be interested in knowing."
All right, pace car is in. The Michigan 400 is breaking toward the line, and they stack 4 wide as the crowd rises to its feet, sends them off. Elliott in front. Change of leadership. Richmond goes out in front. Tim Richmond at first, Allison in second, Pearson's in third, Gantz in fourth.
But Allison wants to lead back.
Some 10 automobiles running up in front. Back comes Richmond another time. Better than 170 miles per hour. They swap the lead going back to turn number 3 and give it to Richmond for a moment, but maybe not for long. Here comes Allison.
This is the kind of racing that fans in Michigan have become accustomed to. The track just lends itself to fantastic racing, good drafting.
Back they come. Cars beginning to change color a little here, and here comes Benny Parsons. Just slips down to the inside, and that Jackson car, Johnny Hayes' machine, just thunders through for the lead.
He made it look easy, but here comes Richmond right back. He's going to put the bumper to it. Well, almost.
New leader, Cale Yarborough, now takes the lead. The 6-time winner of this Michigan 400 is in front. Elliott in second. Comes the Ford down to the inside of the Chevrolet as they scoot through 3 and 4. Elliott looking for that first super speedway win. He won on the road course at Riverside, California a year ago.
And there's trouble. It's Cale up in turn number 3. Apparently that tire was going down. Can they all get around him as Cale spins around and around and back down on the inside? Apparently that tire was going fast. He had hit the wall a little bit earlier. Now the green flag is waving now.
And there's Earnhardt taking a shot. He's coming up to and he gets trapped. He's trying to pull by Boddine as they come to the line. They're 4 or 5 cars wide. And Dale Earnhardt is sandwiching himself right in the middle of machinery, slamming through equipment as he moves up through. Incredible performance by Dale Earnhardt. Out of turn number 4, the man who sat on the pole with a local car owner is going to bring a Ford Thunderbird home to victory at the Michigan International Speedway. The winner of the Michigan 400 as the crowd stands and cheers the Elliott family of Dawsonville, Georgia. Dale Earnhardt will bring it across in second.
The Firecracker 400 lived up to its name as it became one of NASCAR's most memorable races, but also one of its most explosive. Controversy happened as soon as the garage opened. Junior Johnson alleged that when Richard Petty's car went through inspection, Chief Inspector Dick Beatty declared the Pontiac body was illegal and wouldn't be allowed to race. Instead, NASCAR President Bill France Jr. overruled the decision and allowed the car to compete. Meanwhile, Petty's Curb Racing team was falling behind on their payments to Dyalla for engines. It was said that on race morning, Petty had to personally promise money to Dyalla so their engine wouldn't be repossessed.
Richard Petty will be gunning for an unprecedented 200 stock car victory. And to heighten the drama, Air Force One is flying a special guest into town.
All right, gentlemen, start your engines.
Qualifying speeds were very close to 200 miles per hour. Cale Yarborough was above 199 miles per hour in qualifying for this race. A new record in qualifying for the Firecracker 400, and they take the green flag. They're going off on lap 1, but Cale Yarborough is off to a very smooth start and holds the lead as now Earnhardt tries to go by him on the top of the track.
You see Labonte sweeping by into the lead there, Jim. Now Richard Petty running much faster and further to the front than he usually does. Could the pressure on him to win his 200 mean that he will push a little bit harder throughout this race today? We have no idea, but it's unusual to see him that far up.
Reminiscent of the scoring controversy at Pocono, Harry Gant was the last car to pit during green flag pit stops when Bobby Hillin brought out the caution on lap 43. When Gant pitted under caution, his crew thought they got a lucky break and trapped most of the field a lap down. But when he stopped, NASCAR officials held him a lap to erase the advantage. Still mad from Pocono, Bobby Allison later said, quote, "It was another case of Harry not slowing down and NASCAR making a mistake in scoring under the caution. This time, though, NASCAR decided that one of their guys was going to get hurt, so they made a different ruling."
Good. There goes Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt moving to the inside and now trying to get past Cale Yarborough. Couldn't quite get him. Yarborough, it looks like, is going to hold the lead. Now here comes Earnhardt again with that inside position as they come onto the front straight. Now out on the track, the leaders for the moment are the two men who began the day as the focus of this story. Number 28, Cale Yarborough in the lead. Right behind him, in car number 43, Richard Petty, trying today to win his 200th Grand National Stock Car race. Back in Daytona with less than 8 laps to go in the Firecracker 400, Richard Petty has taken the lead in car 43. And a car is spun out. Doug Heveron's car is spun out in turn 1. So now the yellow caution flag may be coming out. Indeed, as I look just below us, the yellow caution flag is going to come out.
You are allowed to race to the line once the yellow has come out. Cale Yarborough did that. Richard Petty is counterattacking. This may be the race that we're looking at here as they sweep up into traffic. A highly dangerous situation.
Coming down the front straight. Here they are, Sam. They will come across the yellow line just about together, but Petty had the lead. By the nose of the car, Richard Petty was just in front of Cale Yarborough as they came across the line. Now with 1 lap to go and behind Petty, Cale Yarborough is turning off and heading toward pit road.
What could be the reason? No, Cale goes right through the pits and back out. I'm trying to think if there's any remaining element of strategy that could have dictated that move. I can't think of it.
As they come down this time, you are going to see a checkered flag for car number 43. Richard Petty has won the 200th race of his incomparable Grand National Stock Car racing career.
Because there were no speed limits and the field was spread out, Yarborough returned to the track in 3rd place. Other teams were confused as to why he was allowed to keep the position, as in most other scenarios under caution, a car that pits would return to the track behind cars that hadn't. Meanwhile, at the end of the race, David Pearson's car was smoking and blocking the view for cars behind him. This angered Tim Richmond, who gave Pearson the middle finger as he passed him. In the garage after the race, Pearson confronted Richmond, and after Richmond called the 49-year-old an old man, Pearson punched him in the face before they were separated. The Allison and Petty feud, long the strongest in NASCAR, was briefly put aside over their shared respect for President Reagan. But after the president had left and the KFC buckets were thrown away, many competitors were angry at the feeling Petty's win came from outside help. While Petty and NASCAR have always maintained the car was legal, that didn't stop competitors at the time from claiming it wasn't. Allison went so far as to compare NASCAR to professional wrestling and said Petty's car passing inspection was close to a scripted outcome. He said, quote, "We had the best car of the ones that hadn't been chopped up to look like dirt cars. I think we were faster, by far, than any other car that would pass inspection. It looked like NASCAR wanted Petty to win this race." And since Allison's team built the engines for Petty's car, he later told a story in his 2006 book of talking with Robert Yates in the engine shop days before the race and seeing an engine that looked oversized. Bobby marked it with a scratch on the block and then saw that engine in Petty's car on race morning. Newspapers from the time reported that some speculated the engine was oversized by as much as 40 cubic inches. Allison's anger that his team was supplying engines for Petty continued to build, and this was the final straw. Within days, it was announced that Dyalla and Curb Racing had mutually agreed to end their lease program and build their own engines. Junior Johnson was also angered by Petty's car, saying, quote, Bill France Jr. set racing back 100 years by allowing Petty to run his Pontiac at Daytona. He said, quote, I can see people doing little things to get an advantage, but when they get caught, it should be corrected, not subsidized. But I'm not going to complain to NASCAR about it. My conversations with NASCAR all ended when that Charlotte deal ended the way that it did. I've accepted the fact that it's their ball game, and they can make the rules. When I get tired of playing, I'll just get out and retire. I've tried to help the sport during my years in it, but I'm simply not interested much anymore. Amid all this drama, Dale Earnhardt took the points lead, his first time atop the standings since he won the 1980 championship. Darrell Waltrip lost 34 laps with ignition problems and dropped to second. 16 races were complete when NASCAR left Daytona Beach after the Firecracker 400. It marked a halfway point for the season and a turning point for the sport. Richard Petty would never win again. Since 1960, the King had won 21% of all his starts. Everything in NASCAR could be considered before and after Richard Petty's last win. It was a new era.
The winning spirit of 76. Charlotte means stock car racing, fast and furious.
Most guys spend Sunday taking it easy. Not me.
More illegal parts were the topic when the Cup Series returned to Nashville. Inspectors discovered a special rear-end gear used by some teams. It delivered more power exiting corners on the short tracks, but was very fragile. Bobby Allison's crew chief Gary Nelson admitted they used the part at Bristol in April when he lapped the field, but it broke with 50 laps to go. It broke again at North Wilkesboro a week later, and the team gave up on it, but others apparently still had it. It was also said that NASCAR officials found an illegal 24-gallon gas tank in one of the cars, 2 gallons bigger than legal, but declined to publicly say whose car had it. After losing the win in May in the final 10 laps, Jeff Boddine led 327 laps and held off Darrell Waltrip by a car length to take the victory. Neil Bonnet qualified second for the Light Cola 500 at Pocono, but in Saturday's practice he hit a small deer on the track exiting turn 2. The impact broke the nose in the radiator on his car. Bonnet, an avid hunter, joked, "I've gotten a lot of deer in my life, but this is the first one I've taken with a Chevrolet."
The field 3 abreast as they enter turn number 1 from the second row. Harry Gant has taken the lead, but Bill Elliott is battling alongside as they go through turn number 1.
He's had a crash. It appeared to be Allison.
Allison into the wall and another car spinning right behind him. Bobby had heavy contact with the wall. Here's how it happened. Bobby Allison out of turn number 2. The car slides toward the outside and hits the wall hard. Harry Gant is leading the way. Right behind him is Cale Yarborough, and right behind Yarborough is Ron Bouchard. They accelerate going down the straightaway. Yarborough moves to the inside of Harry Gant. There is some great racing going on out on the track. Yarborough and Gant side by side now at the end of the straightaway, braking hard, going downhill into turn 1. Yarborough grabs back the lead. Now Gant in the inside in turn number 2 looks to take over the lead again. Side by side into the turn. Gant with a half car length advantage as they go inside to turn 2.
Boy, can you imagine? And there goes Cale Yarborough back to the inside of Harry. We've had 3 or 4 lead changes on this lap alone. There are only 3 turns on the racetrack. All those guys right in a row, and now here comes Bouchard.
Bouchard flexing the muscle, goes inside and takes the lead. These guys are having a delightful time on this Sunday afternoon. Yarborough now moving to the inside of Ron Bouchard once again. Harry Gant moves to the inside and passes Cale Yarborough, so Gant is in the lead. Look at this. Yes, that is a Grand National stock car. It isn't a modified. But Bobby Allison, after crashing on the 32nd lap, returns to competition on lap number 91. A tough break for Harry Gant. He is back at speed on the racetrack, but he had to come in for a stop-and-go penalty just 1 lap ago.
Well, it's very specific in the rule book. You cannot drive over him, Jack, and watch the right rear tires, Harry Gant, bounce up in the air as he pulls away.
To get involved in a drafting situation.
Turn number 3. Somebody is up against the wall in turn number 3. It's Greg Sachs.
Now, here are the leaders coming in. Let's watch the situation. Remember last time, Gant had the better stop and was able to get, and he hits one of his pit crew members, knocks him down, and also knocks the tires from his hands.
Jeffrey Ellis. Jeffrey, you got hit.
Yeah, everything's fine, just as long as he wins the race now. That's the main thing.
Look at Bill Elliott to the inside as the crowd screams. Now Elliott in the middle of Harry Gant on the inside and Cale Yarborough outside. What a duel.
Who's going to make it?
Who's going to make it into the first turn? It's going to be Harry Gant, it looks like. Yes, Gant takes the lead.
From third to first.
It's still Harry Gant showing the way.
Yarborough moves in a little bit. The deficit goes down to 2 car lengths, about 3 car lengths. Gant gets a good bite down on the bottom of turn number 3. I think it's going to be Gant.
They come out of turn number 3. The crowd rises to its feet. They cheer for the winner of the Light Cola 500, Harry Gant. And Cale Yarborough finishes second by about a half a car length over Bill Elliott. And that is our 11th different winner on the Grand National Circuit for 1984, Harry Gant.
Bobby Allison continued his accusations of cheating at Talladega. NASCAR forced the cars of Allison and Richard Petty to make changes to the body before qualifying. Meanwhile, Cale Yarborough's team passed inspection on the first try. Yarborough then won the pole at 202 miles per hour, to which Allison replied, quote, "Cale runs a limited schedule, and NASCAR kind of lets them do what they want to do, so they ought to run pretty good." And since NASCAR's inspection process was done in a closed room, he believed inspectors didn't look too closely at Yarborough's car, saying, quote, "If the templates had been right out here for everybody to see, the qualifying might have shaken down a little differently, but they wouldn't even let me in there." Yarborough responded by saying, quote, "After hearing Bobby run his mouth as much as he has lately, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm not trying to start a feud with him, but I am tired of him talking about me. What he needs to do is go home and do his homework and quit running his mouth." Following the thrilling race in May, the July Talladega 500 was even closer and was called by some as one of the greatest races ever in the history of auto racing.
Back straightaway, first time. There's that number 3. That is Earnhardt, last year's winner, trying to be the first man to win 2 in a row. And Tommy Ellis moving up in there. Back straightaway. Here comes Cale. He goes after the number 3 car of Earnhardt, the yellow and blue car.
Now here's Buddy Baker going for the lead. He's the Charger. Puts his board right out front around Dale Earnhardt.
Allison back on the inside, number 22, right back in there, thrusting that car by 3 machines as they come out of turn number 2. Bobby Allison knocks on the door another time.
And the fans here are just loving it because Bobby Allison and Neil Bonnet, the 2 cars that's side by side with Neil Bonnet, are only 50 miles from here, Hueytown, Alabama, and they got a lot of fans here today, kid.
Alabama gang going for it, and here comes Elliott mixing it up now. He's right up there, inches away from Bobby Allison's car at over 195 miles an hour as they just sashay a little off turn number 4. Look at Yarborough just explode out from behind, drops to the bottom of the track, and in the tri-oval, it is Cale Yarborough who has never won this race. And down to the inside, look at Earnhardt struggling to go back by Cale Yarborough, and it will be Earnhardt in the first place in turn 3. Here you go. Here's Elliott going for the lead another time, and Marcus relegated to second position.
Neil Bonnet on the inside. Big push by Buddy Baker, but now Baker decides, well, maybe I ought to move up here behind Bill Elliott. He seems to be the strongest at this point and get some help from his Ford buddy.
Elliott was the 10th difference leader in the event.
Well, then he says we'll just make it 3 deep going into the turn. Bonnet and Elliott.
It's Baker. Look at Baker come through, and Bouchard. Hello, here he comes again. Dale Earnhardt trying to be the first man in history. Ooh, just slides in there. And look at Bouchard have to work number 47 as he almost overrode car number 3, taking that spot.
I tell you what, that 3 car, Dale Earnhardt, is extremely strong today.
Boddine running first. Cale Yarborough back for the lead on the inside, the number 28 car pulling alongside, and they go wheel to wheel for turn number 3 and go up on the side of the barrel. Oh, car in trouble.
Got it.
Spinning, crashing. That is the Trevor Boyce car. In big trouble out of turn number 4.
He's moving around. He just cut the switches off. He's coming out of the car after taking a ride like that, getting out that quickly. And Another indication of how well these automobiles are put together, because that was not an easy ride. Okay, he gets hooked. It looks like that's Tommy Ellis' car right behind him, and they just touch enough, and it shoots his car down to the inside. The air gets underneath the car, flips it over backwards. It hits hard on the top, scoots up the end of pit road there on the top. It hits the grass area, flips back over, all the way over and back on the wheels and up on the side, and lands back on the wheels once again like a big bucking horse.
Buddy Baker is going back in front. Cale Yarborough trying to pull beneath, trying the bottom of the racetrack. Terry Labonte, number 44, the Billy Hagan car. Crew chief Dale Inman goes into second place. The Waddell Wilson car, the Harry Ranier machine of Cale Yarborough lying fourth, and sandwiching himself in there so neatly is Labonte. Now here he comes, driving to the inside, and Earnhardt comes with him.
Buddy Baker's spot, third spot. I think anybody would take that spot, or Dale Earnhardt's. But any other spot than that, I don't think they're where they want to be. Do you, Dan?
Other than maybe Labonte, because he's got to know that Baker is going to make a move on Earnhardt, which might slow both of them down a little bit. So the front position might not be a bad position to be in. Other than those positions, I don't know.
1 lap to go. As this tremendous group of cars thunders into turn number 1. Terry Labonte in front. Earnhardt is there in second. Then in third, it's Buddy Baker on the outside. Bobby Allison is in fourth. Harry Gant is on the inside in fifth. At 200 miles an hour, all of these cars contesting for the lead. Earnhardt closes ground. He's going to try the high side. Earnhardt going to turn 3 at 200 miles an hour. Winds it up, fires it in there. And it's Earnhardt going in front. Baker to second, Labonte back to third. It is still Allison in fourth. And now on the inside, Terry Labonte begins to move. Labonte back to second as they switch positions and shuffle down out of the turn as they come out of the tri-oval, headed for the line. The question will be, who will be second? The checkered flag belongs today to the Richard Childress crew. Dale Earnhardt has done it again. The first man to ever win it 2 years in a row. So that's the story of the 1984 Talladega 500. This man, Dale Earnhardt, is successful.
Earnhardt's win extended his point lead to 70 points over Labonte and 84 over Elliott. After Talladega, the Cup Series had a week off, and Tim Richmond spent it by flying over to Germany to watch F1's German Grand Prix. Over the summer of 1984, it was widely rumored that Richmond was considering a switch to Formula One in '85. The lone win at North Wilkesboro highlighted a rough year for Richmond, the Blue Max racing team. In January, crew chief Tim Brewer was indicted, later pled guilty to 4 felony charges of receiving stolen property, 4 lawnmowers worth over $6,000. After paying restitution, Brewer's jail sentence was suspended, and NASCAR gave him a 1-month suspension in May. Richmond was openly unhappy with the performance of the team and looked to do something radical. He later recalled the F1 offer as, quote, "It was something that started after a Formula One team called me. I didn't call anyone. I wouldn't mind someday when I retire. History books saying I drove a Formula One car and did it well." Ultimately, he would stay with Blue Max Racing, but Brewer would become Neil Bonnet's crew chief in 1985. In the conclusion of the IROC series, Neil Bonnet beat Cale Yarborough to win the final race, but it was Yarborough who won the championship.
Bill Elliott leads them down toward the green flag. Harold Kinder waves the green, and we are underway.
There you see that battle for, about 5th through 12th. There's a lot of this 2, 3, 4, and even sometimes 5 abreast racing here at the Michigan International Speedway, and this is just typical of what you'd expect.
Darrell Waltrip moves to the inside of Bill Elliott and passes. We have now had 2 leaders in this race. Darrell Waltrip takes the lead on lap number 17. And here is the leader, Terry Labonte, as he has gotten in and out of the pits faster than anybody else and is on the lead with Darrell Waltrip running in second spot. Terry Labonte is slowing and stopping in his pits. It's a 17.3 second pit stop, and Terry Labonte is also slow getting out of the pits, but he finally finds the fire and moves back out. The battle at Michigan International Speedway is among 3 cars: Terry Labonte, Darrell Waltrip, and Bill Elliott, and there they are crossing the start-finish line, completing 170 laps, only 30 to go. We still have not had a caution flag all afternoon.
Labonte and Waltrip can hold back. And Labonte way up high, and Waltrip gets underneath. Terry Labonte much higher than I'm sure he wanted to be. Bob, Bill Elliott has accomplished part of his task. He does have the lead, but he cannot shake Waltrip and Labonte. Elliott may be slowing.
Yes, he is. Here is Bill Elliott making the stop 7 laps from the finish, leading a tough break, but those mileage problems have reared their ugly head again for Bill Elliott. So now we concentrate on who's going to win, Darrell Waltrip or Terry Labonte. 2 more laps to go, and now Labonte begins to show some muscle on the inside as they move into the backstretch. Labonte, however, unable to grab the lead away from Darrell Waltrip at this point. Harold Kinder waves the white flag. We have a car smoking very badly in turn number 1. You can see the smoke there. That is Jody Ridley. He's already been given the black flag. Darrell Waltrip leads Terry Labonte off of turn number 4. The smoke from Jody Ridley's car.
Labonte in trouble almost.
He's sliding to the inside, but manages to regain control, and Darrell Waltrip wins the race. Labonte second. Almost lost it there in turn 4, but managed to hang on.
Michigan highlighted an evolution in stock car engineering. Waltrip's win was his first using a front steer car. For decades, rear steer cars had mounted the steering box and linkage behind the front wheels. Introduced in 1981, front steer cars had the steering geometry in front of the wheels. The difference was a front steer car wasn't as loose entering the turns. At the time, teams would buy chassis already built by outside vendors. Of the 2 major builders, Banjo Matthews built rear steer cars, and Mike Laughlin built front steer cars. In 1984, teams would buy both types and switch back and forth as they learned which geometry best suited individual tracks. Throughout the 1980s, both cars had equal success until radial tires were introduced in 1989, and the rear steer car became obsolete.
Jeff Boddine won his first pole of the season to lead the first 69 laps of the Busch 500 in Bristol, Tennessee Saturday night. The weather was nice, the stands were full, but the track was in a very foul mood. Kyle Petty kissed the wall on lap 12 for the first of an even dozen caution periods. Bill Elliott's number 9 car got bent up after hitting a patch of coolant. That sent him spinning. He still finished 6th, 9 laps down. Just before Elliott's mishap, Darrell Waltrip pulled up and passed Boddine for the lead, hoping for his 8th consecutive win at Bristol. The fans cheered, but luck ran out on lap 284 when the car's rear end broke. Sterling Marlin signaled the start of a demolition derby on lap 109, and the restart caught 5 more competitors fighting over turn 1. The fight was declared a draw. This was only the 4th caution. Later on, Richard Petty spun to a halt on the front stretch. Then on lap 269, Tim Richmond got cozy with the wall in turn 2. Tim called it a night. The wall was unscathed. 7 laps later, see the car getting T-boned? That's number 44, Terry Labonte. Keep this in mind. For 62 laps, no one could catch Dale Earnhardt. So he parked on the front stretch. He cut a tire. About a second after that, there was a new leader. It was T-boned Terry Labonte. Terry's only challenger was Neil Bonnet. Neil in the number 12 car wanted to be the 12th different race leader. But he became the 12th and final caution instead, hitting the wall in turn 3. Terry Labonte took his final lap with a comfortable lead over second place Bobby Allison, a narrow lead in the Winston Cup Championship points, and his second victory this season.
Entering the Southern 500 with 2 months left in the season, there were 5 teams separated by 120 points. Labonte held a 10-point advantage over Earnhardt. Bill Elliott was 59 back, while Darrell Waltrip and Harry Gant trailed by 119 and 120 respectively. Before qualifying, Dick Brooks claimed that teams were using illegal fuel additives to give a horsepower boost. Teams would use special fuel for qualifying or for the last stint of the race. Brooks said, quote, "You can look at the stopwatches and see who I'm talking about. Some drivers this year have picked up as much as a second and a half from practice to qualifying. I wish NASCAR would do something about it."
Pace car does move to the inside in pit row. Harold Kinder looks the field over. And the green flag is out. The 35th annual Southern 500 is on. Harry Gant has been by far the dominant force to deal with this afternoon. We have had a major accident here at Darlington.
There you saw Bobby Hillen. Hillen was the first one to go to the outside. He's on the outside, the left-hand side of your wall. There, oh boy, what a hit that was by H.B. Bailey.
The car got up off the ground, all four wheels up off the ground, and very, very heavy contact, but fortunately he climbed out of that car and obviously is uninjured, but look at the front end of that machine. Now, I don't think we can stress enough and congratulate enough two guys running in this pack who are doing excellent performances this afternoon. That guy, Lake Speed in car 1, and Joe Ruttman in 98, who is really in the thick of things. Everybody can now go the distance without additional fuel. And that being the case, it could be that Harry Gant will now set his sights on winning this race and winning it big.
And there's been trouble with Cale Yarborough, two cars spinning as they come out of turn 4. Yarborough's gathered
And
it
a
back
third.
in.
A third car,
one is spun.
That's Clark Dwyer in number 6, the DK Ulrich car, and it looks like that Joe Ruttman also has bumped the wall up in turn number 4. That is going to be another tough break for Joe Ruttman if he has damaged the car to the point of not being able to stay up there with the leaders where he is for most of this race. Elliott's car is also damaged.
There's Lake Speed again, one of the front runners, having problems during this caution period.
Well, it's too bad for both Lake Speed and Joe Ruttman, two drivers looking for their first wins in NASCAR competition. Cale's car blue, putting down oil and making for a very slick racetrack up in turn number 4. Harry Gant has the Southern 500 victory within his sights into turn number 3 for the final time. There is a little bit of race traffic in front of him, but it should present no problem. Harry Gant now moves in turn number 4, comes off of the corner and sees the checkered flag from Harold Kender, and there it is. Harry Gant has won the Southern 500 for 1984, and Harry signifies the win already by sticking the hand out the window and saluting the members of his pit crew.
We ran that good from the first practice through qualifying all day, and so we ran so good and handled so good. I said, I'm going to go wide open all day, and they're going to have to keep up because I just wasn't going to fool around. I said, maybe if I run hard as I can go, I can wear them out.
A major announcement was made entering the Richmond weekend. Winner of the last 2 Daytona 500s with Cale Yarborough, Rainier Racing was leaving Chevrolet and switching to Ford for 1985. In addition to the money offered from Ford, it was said that Rainier was unhappy that General Motors didn't use their racing in its advertising while Ford did.
All right, thundering now down into turn number 1. You're on the green. Let's take it down the back straightaway.
Well, there's Earnhardt in the fence already. 2 point leaders here. Terry Labonte, the point leader for the championship, and Rusty Wallace, the point leader for Rookie of the Year. So we've got a couple of champions with another champion right behind them.
Big accident coming up. Look out. In trouble, Jimmy Hensley out of Ridgeway, Virginia, and Derek Cope out of Tacoma, Washington. Cope in the 07. A lot of damage to the car. A lot of cars. Here's Lenny Pond. He got in trouble. A lot of cars got in trouble along about this time. One right after another. I would imagine the racetrack gets a little slick about now.
Well, everything happens right along here. It's guy's car isn't handling well. He gets in trouble. Tempers have a tendency to flare, too. Now, there's Bill Elliott. He purely and simply had a flat tire going into that corner and gets hung up in the guardrail.
All right, what's happening is that Ricky Rudd is trying to move in on Darrell Waltrip and closing quickly. So here you are, down the back straight away. Ricky Rudd pulling away from you, and as luck would have it, the yellow comes out. There's your friend, Trevor Boyes.
Trevor Boyes, I owe him a steak dinner. There's no question about that. Here we come in the pits, and this is significant because Rudd had a big lead on us, and I was able to get in the pit as quickly as he did, and you're going to see a great crew go to work here and get me out before he does. And as I told you earlier, that's the key to winning races on a short track.
Darrell Waltrip picks up the checkered flags, and Darrell Waltrip and the Junior Johnson team become victorious at Richmond, Virginia, and the Richmond 400.
The Delaware 500 saw a battle for the win between Harry Gant and Ron Bouchard. Near the end, Bouchard had tire troubles and made an unscheduled pit stop, allowing Gant to take an easy win over Terry Labonte. On lap 119, Bobby Allison blew a right front tire and crashed hard in turn 3. Allison suffered a broken shoulder and what was the latest problem in a season of bad luck. By this point, the crew believed it was because of a hex that a warlock named Billy Wood put on them in the Daytona 500. Wood was a Virginia man in his 50s who was well known in NASCAR for his ability to put hexes on teams and his attempts to get free stuff in exchange for good luck. Wood claimed he put a hex on Allison's team at the Daytona 500 when he asked crew chief Gary Nelson for a hat and was denied. In an interview, Wood asked, quote, "Am I responsible for it? Yes. I hated to see him get hurt, but do not get along with Bobby Allison or his team. I told Gary Nelson if he didn't give me that hat, I'd put a real bad hex on them. He was warned." Wood had been a race fan for decades and even had drivers like Darrell Waltrip send him money for good luck. To help a driver, he would point his left arm at the car and twirl his index finger in circles. To hex a car, he would raise his arms parallel to the ground and cross his index fingers. There were several incidents that convinced people he had powers. Richmond track announcer Ray Melton remembered watching the 1965 Daytona 500 with Wood as he cursed Junior Johnson. Melton said, quote, "I turned and said to Billy, it looks like old Junior's going to win. But Billy crossed his fingers and said, no, he's not. He's going to run into the second turn wall in the next lap." And that's exactly what happened.
Junior Johnson in the lead. Uh-oh, there he is. Junior Johnson has hit the wall. Wow, all of a sudden that car just let go toward the outside wall.
Ned Jarrett won the 1965 Southern 500 by a record 14 laps. He sent Billy $100 for his help. Bill Dennis won the 1972 Sportsman race at Daytona, with Wood standing in his pits while strange mechanical problems took out his competitors. Wood had garage access until September 1974, when he spit in Richard Petty's face as he drove to Victory Lane at Richmond, something Billy said was an accident. NASCAR Vice President Bill Gazaway said, quote, "Billy is a con artist. He extracts a great deal of money out of all of this. To me, basically, it's extortion. But what's there to prove? Personally, I think it's bad luck to be superstitious." Despite their bad luck, Allison's crew insisted they would not send Billy Wood a hat. Coincidentally, Allison would never win another race for Dyalla. Wood continued to go to races and claimed hexes on drivers. After Rusty Wallace spun Darrell Waltrip to win the 1989 All-Star race, it was reported on Saturday that Wood said he would hex Wallace to fall out of the Coke 600 with a blown engine. On Sunday, Wallace blew an engine. Wood died in October 1991 at the age of 59.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Chief starter Harold Kinder puts the field under green. Who will win the drag race to turn one?
Jeff Boddine has got it, Mike.
Boddine is way off the pace. Neil Bonnet has taken the lead, and Bodine's car is just coasting down the back straightaway.
Oh, what a tough break for Jeff Boddine.
And here is Ricky Rudd's Wrangler car coasting down pit road. Bud Moore and the crew come walking out, but judging by that smoke, his day's done.
Well, good move by Harry again. Excellent move. Oh! It was close down there, Mike. It was close.
Space between those cars.
Oh!
So Waltrip will be the leader when we go back to green flag racing.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Darrell Waltrip at the beginning of the race seemed to be out of it. He was almost a half a lap behind the leaders, and here he is leading the race.
Well, there's trouble down at turn 2. Tim Richmond slides and spins into a stalled Kyle Petty. Harold Kinder has the flag in hand as Waltrip rounds off the corner. White flag, 1 lap to go for Waltrip to put the 6th notch in his gun for the 1984 season. Waltrip wins the Goodies 500, and don't count them out of the championship just yet.
By this point, all were again reminded why the NASCAR Championship was one of the hardest titles to claim in sports. 9 months of racing, with every race having value and every week building upon the next. No do-overs, no racing bad weeks. A few bad races in September took Earnhardt, Waltrip, and Elliott out of contention. Meanwhile, Harry Gant's team stepped up and chased Labonte for the final 2 months, both seeking their first championship. At North Wilkesboro on Saturday, Gant's car owner tried voodoo to help. In the garage area, Hal Needham produced 2 dolls and candles. On a red doll were the numbers of Terry Labonte, Darrell Waltrip, and Dale Earnhardt. On a white doll was Gant's number and fellow Skoll drivers Benny and Phil Parsons. Burning under the red doll was a red candle shaped like a man and a black candle shaped like a cat. Under the white doll was a white candle shaped like a man. Needham explained that the candles were meant to absorb the spirits into the dolls, and that the red and black candles would exert an evil influence. Also influencing the competition were chemically soaked tires. By this point in the season, Goodyear tires were a harder compound than teams liked, so they began soaking the tires in a chemical called toluene, a strong-smelling chemical found in paint thinner. It makes the rubber softer and stickier, giving more grip, but is a toxic chemical that can cause neurological problems. Goodyear engineers complained that the smell made them sick when unmounting tires from rims. Inspectors caught the teams of Neil Bonnet and Ron Bouchard with soaked tires at North Wilkesboro, but declined to penalize them because they were caught before using them. Rain postponed the North Wilkesboro event until the next open weekend 2 weeks later. Before the Charlotte 500, it was announced that Kyle Petty would drive for the Wood Brothers in 1985. Instead of a normal press conference, they held a wedding ceremony to join two of NASCAR's greatest families.
We are gathered here today to witness the exchanging of vows between Kyle Petty of North Carolina and the Wood Brothers of Virginia. By the power vested in me, I hereby pronounce these Wood Brothers, and to be driven by Kyle Petty, to be a reality in 1985.
Pole qualifying at Charlotte offered a huge prize. The pole sitter would get $17,000, a new Ford Bronco, and a new Ford Ranger for his crew chief. This was more money than the second-place finisher would get in the race at North Wilkesboro. To make sure nobody was cheating, NASCAR impounded the qualifying sets of tires and placed them on the cars under supervision before qualifying began. It was also ordered that all fuel cells be empty and fuel added with an official present. Doing this would prevent illegal fuel additives and soaked tires, although the impound building was said to still smell like tire chemicals. Instead of a single lap, qualifying was a 4-lap average speed. Benny Parsons won the pole with a remarkable consistency of only 7 one-thousandths of a second between his fastest and slowest lap. Parsons said he would take his share of the prize money to buy another truck for his engine builder and split the rest with his 5 full-time crew members. Before Busch Series qualifying, soaked tires were confiscated from the cars of Phil Parsons, L.D. Ottinger, Tommy Houston, and Dale Jarrett. Sam Ard clinched his second straight Busch Series championship. On Saturday, Hal Needham continued his voodoo when he invited a witch doctor to the garage. The man was named Tapaka, wore striped pants, a long black coat, a top hat, and had an eye patch. He planned to toss powder over competitors' cars before NASCAR officials told the witch doctor to leave. Needham's driver, Harry Gant, joined those who were critical of NASCAR's inspections and claimed officials spent too much time on the fuel and tires and overlooked other violations. He said officials were too lenient with body modifications and, quote, "I couldn't believe some of the cars they let get past the templates."
But Parsons, as he catches them, he just passes them where he finds them on the racetrack. That's just how well that car is working. Trouble in turn one as the field scoots off into the corner. Sterling Marlin's car has slammed into the concrete wall, bounces across the racetrack, and comes down to the apron of the track. And it will bring out the first caution flag of the day as Ken Reagan also looked like he got a piece of that mic.
Gant back straightaway. He'll take Waltrip with him down to the inside. There's the white nose of Waltrip's car sneaking a peek on the bottom of the racetrack. And into turn 3. Gant slides underneath, and he takes the lead from Benny Parsons. Waltrip's taking the lead. He's moved ahead of Harry Gant for the front spot.
There's trouble out of the corner as Ken Reagan's car gets away, spins to the outside, and the leader, Darrell Waltrip, gets a piece of it. He slams into the wall, and that's going to hurt Waltrip's chances as he comes down on the apron of the track. Let's hope there's not too much damage to Waltrip's car.
Gant gets loose as he tries to lap Richard Petty. There may have been a little contact there. Whatever, Gant will give up the lead to Cale Yarborough. Just that one slight bobble or contact cost Harry Gant the lead.
Again, Gant charges right back to the front. That car been strong all afternoon.
And coming into the picture is Bill Elliott right behind the Petty car. He's now the third place machine.
As the green flag waves again, the leader will be Bill Elliott. Good pit work put him back out at the head of the pack. Gant rides second. Benny Parsons is third.
What a win it'll be for Elliott and the whole family team from Dawsonville, Georgia. Checkered flag waving from the starter and off turn 4 down to the start-finish line. Bill Elliott notches his third Winston Cup Grand National win of his career and gains some valuable Winston Cup points in that chase for the championship.
See those white cars up front? Well, everybody figured that's who they'd have to beat, and boy, were they right. Darrell Waltrip, pole again.
has won 5 of the last 7 races here, and his teammate Neil Bonnet starred for an 84 victory. The two-time champ leads 36 laps before finally giving way to Neil. Well, he didn't give it away. The youngest Hueytown gang member is looking pretty good about here. The next 140 circuits belong to Old Blue Eyes. Ah, yes, the points quest, the players, and their philosophies. Leader Terry Labonte.
We have to finish right now. We have to be a little cautious. We really can't take any unnecessary chances. We can't try anything new.
Second in tallies, Harry Gant.
Go out for victory, because the championship, you know, you can win it or you can lose it. And, of course, you can in a race, too, but we try to win each race day by day or race by race, and we don't worry about the points or anything, the Winston Cup points. We just run for the win this race.
And then Mr. Waltrip.
We got to go out and run hard and win. Hopefully everything will hang together, and what happened last week won't happen again, and we can pull it off. I think I can do it.
Texan Labonte is off pace today. He gets 5 important bonus points for leading during a flurry of pit stops. He gets lapped shortly thereafter, and he'll only finish 9th, his worst in the last 12 races. Harry is a threat to win all day, but ironically never leads. He'll finish 2nd and move to within 59 of the points lead. Meanwhile, back to the race. Here's a rundown of the action. Waltrip, of all people, spins down the backstretch. Jeff Hooker bounced into him, no lap lost. L.D. Ottinger spins with open wheel man Kenny Schrader, then a little later bangs up with Lake Speed. Tim Richmond, planning a green flag pit stop, spun into the pit wall and thrilled some pit members as he regrouped.
Tim Richmond was fined $1,000 for unsafe driving as his spin recovery came close to hitting crewmen on pit road.
Although 7 stayed on the lead lap, it was just too much Junior Johnson and too much Darrell Waltrip for the final 100. The other 6 in order, Harry, Bobby, Neil, Rusty Wallace showing him a thing or two, Ricky Rudd, and Dale Earnhardt.
Harry Gant's second-place finish pulled him to within 59 points of Labonte, but in post-race inspection, it was discovered that his engine was slightly larger than the 358 cubic inches allowed. After waiting for it to cool down, the engine passed. In Saturday's Busch Series race, champion Sam Ard suffered serious head injuries when his car spun in oil. While he would recover enough to win a couple short-track races, Ard retired from driving in mid-1985 and became a crew chief. Bobby Allison was also involved, re-injured his shoulder from Dover.
Jeff Boddine Chevrolet inside of Bill Elliott's Ford to come down for the start in the first of 500 miles. Drops the green flag on the Hudson American 500. Jeff Boddine will lead the drag race into turn number 1, coming in from the south and west. Looks like a tremendous thunderstorm. We may be racing the rain here. Jeff Boddine has led every lap, but now caution is out as the oil from Jimmy Means' car dumped on the racetrack has brought out the caution flag.
And fortunately, Mike, the cars were slowed down because it is beginning to rain. As you can see, the people heading for cover.
The rain is not coming down, it's coming across, and the place is soaked. After a few laps under caution, the pace car will head for pit road. Bobby Allison and Dave Marcus did not make pit stops. The Raymock Racing Engines Pontiac of Dave Marcus rides second, and Marcus wants the front spot. He's got it. Battle for the lead. Boddine goes to the inside and wants the front spot back from Marcus, and green is waving. Harry Gant and Ron Bouchard bring the field down toward turn number 1. Petty is in the 4th spot behind
trouble, Mike. Trouble in turn 1.
One car, Dick Brooks is around. Baker is in it. Bonnet, Boddine, Richmond.
On the restart, Mike, when all the cars were bumper to bumper, they just no place to go. Dick Brooks is the first car that I see sideways. Then Buddy Baker now in the 21 car is turning the car sideways. He goes up, tags Neil Bonnet. Neil Bonnet goes almost head on in the wall. And now the smoke is so bad that these other cars coming into the wreck, bumper to bumper, really can't. They have no visibility. They don't know what's going on. Trouble.
On its roof, Jerry Bowman's Ford. Lake Speed spins around coming down the backstretch, and he pounds into the wall and slides, just misses Bowman's car.
He's crawling out, Mike.
He has turned turtle in that Ford.
They are making a driver change. Bobby Allison's getting out, and Neil Bonnet is going in.
So they'll strap Bonnet into the car. Elliott has about 3 car lengths on Harry Gant.
Looks like Harry Gant really has his work cut out for him.
2.5 laps to go, and Gant is there.
He is on the back bumper.
2 laps to go. Out of turn 2, back straightaway. Here goes Gant. He makes his move to the inside.
I think he's got him.
Harry Gant dives into turn 3. He's got the lead. No, here comes Elliott right back at him, and they touch
together.
Out of turn 4, they almost hit again, coming off the corner. White flag, last lap
to go.
And that would have been a photo finish. It's Gant in front. No, it's Elliott coming back at him on the inside.
It looks like Harry's got it.
He leaves half a lane for Elliott on the bottom of the racetrack. Out of turn 4, Elliott's got the room, and he's coming, and he beats Gant to the line.
I don't believe that, Mike. I don't believe that.
That's how close it was.
Despite losing the race by a foot, Gant closed on Labonte for the championship, now only 49 points behind with 2 races left. Rockingham was also the debut of Terry Schoonover, a mysterious driver that no one had ever heard of. The 32-year-old previously had a job working at a printing shop, but decided to pursue his goal of racing. So he went to Buck Baker's racing school at Rockingham and soon took a job working there as a helper. Over the summer of '84, Terry and his girlfriend Barbara Pike formed a team called A1A Racing, named after the highway that stretches through Key West, Florida, a favorite vacation spot of theirs. He landed sponsorship from Restore Engine Products, an oil additive local to Florida. He bought a Chevy Monte Carlo from Billy Matthews, the same car Dick Trickle drove to a 36th place finish in the Daytona 500 8 months earlier. Schoonover had limited racing experience and faced a big issue with his size. At 5'5" and 130 pounds, Buck Baker was unsure Terry had the stamina to race. He later said, quote, "The thing that concerned me about Terry was whether or not he was physically able to do it. He was a slight-built, slender sort of guy, and I just wondered about his strength." Schoonover qualified 39th for the 500-mile race, spun with Buddy Boys in turn 2 on lap 222. Questions of his stamina returned when he needed a relief driver after about 375 miles. J.D. McDuffie got in his car and drove only about 20 laps before Schoonover got back in and finished 21st. Overall, it was a respectable debut for the rookie, and he set his sights on the next race. 2 weeks later, Schoonover entered the race at Atlanta, a long 500-mile race that Buck Baker warned against running. Said Baker, quote, "I didn't advise him to drive Atlanta because I didn't think he could physically handle the 500 miles. At Atlanta, 22 cars failed to qualify for the race, but the new driver made the field. Baker was at the track for qualifying and spoke to Schoonover for the last time. Baker said, quote, "His last words to me were, 'I'm going to race if it's the last thing I do.'"
It has begun to rain again, and that's going to terminate activity here at the Atlanta International Raceway and force the 29th and next to last race of 1984's Winston Cup season to next Sunday afternoon.
Last Sunday, when the Atlanta Journal 500 rained out, the cars were placed under lock, key, and shotgun barrel.
It's been a quiet and ironically beautiful week here at Atlanta International Raceway. It's been quiet with good reason. We've got over $4 million worth of racing machinery to protect and a championship title on the line. So Raceway officials have beefed up security. A 24-hour armed guard is normal at the Speedway after a rainout, but Mike Helton says the title chase adds significance.
In a rainout situation, you've got to have 24-hour security in the garage area when they impound the cars to protect them from any kind of tinkering with as far as the crews and the fans and any just general public's concerned.
Sabotage is nothing new to stock car racing. Bobby Allison found sugar in his gas after clinching the 1983 Grand National title in Riverside. So indeed, this is the most important lock in stock car racing. It's the one that protected Harry Gant and Terry Labonte's cars this week at Atlanta International Raceway. The cars they'll use tomorrow in the Atlanta Journal 500.
On the start, it's Elliott and Terry Labonte side by side, tucked right in there, Boddine, and here comes Cale Yarborough. Back next is Harry Gant. That all-important point battle, and look down to the inside. Here comes Boddine. 3 wide into turn number 1. They touch in turn number 3. As they came through turn number 3, they actually pressed some sheet metal in the very first lap. And here's Harry Gant trying to hold on out there and having his problems at the moment. It's Cale Yarborough down on the inside of Texas Terry as they go into turn number 1, and with him comes Earnhardt. Labonte falling back to third spot, and here comes Earnhardt on the inside. Dale Earnhardt down low, the Richard Childress Chevrolet, wheel to wheel with the Lundy Rainier Chevrolet, side by side for the lead, back straight away, and here comes the 44, 3 deep going into turn number 3. Earnhardt stays in front, Cale Yarborough in second. Fantastic racing in the Atlanta Journal 500. And 33 has gone behind the wall. They are pulling car number 33. Glenn, this could be the championship right here.
This is a very serious development.
Harry Gant, Harry, a tough break, but what's the problem?
It's got a spindle broke. It felt like it's something wrong the whole race, but I never could figure what it was. So as the spindle broke, it finally gave away right there at the last.
After 130 laps, Harry Gant went behind the wall with a bad wheel bearing. While the crew changed the spindle, it appeared that would allow Terry Labonte to clinch the championship.
I think Terry may have blown an engine. He's slowing down dramatically going into turn number 1. He's gone right back behind pit road into the garage area. What a misfortune for car number 44. Oh, that is a tough break. Harry Gant, still very much in the championship to be decided next Sunday at Riverside, California. Here is Boddine on the inside with the advantage for the moment. Boddine first. Earnhardt second. Number 5, Boddine says sayonara, I think. That's Boddine coming in.
Evidently there's a problem under the hood. I saw a little wisp of smoke come out of it just as he rolled to the stop.
Late in the race, Dale Earnhardt held the lead, but was leaking oil. As Bill Elliott chased and was blinded by oil on his windshield, there were questions over whether Earnhardt's car would last until the finish.
And Dale Earnhardt, who's been outside on this race, the Atlanta Journal 500, is about to step into victory lane. He's out of turn number 4. Coming down, checkered flag is unfurled, and Earnhardt takes it home. Dale Earnhardt is victorious by just about a half second over Bill Elliott in second place.
But the race was marred by tragedy. After 120 laps, Terry Schoonover was still in the race, but running laps down. On lap 128, he lost control and hit the inside dirt wall. Schoonover was pronounced dead later that afternoon. As for the cause of the crash, people struggled to find an answer. Buck Baker believed that Terry was fatigued, saying, quote, "I just have this hunch that what happened is that he got a little tired and lost the car." Terry's crew chief Bobby Hudson thought he just lost control, and that Terry told him he was feeling good 20 laps before the crash. Atlanta track president Mike Helton thought it was a mechanical problem and didn't want to label it as driver error. For whatever reason, rumors spread among other teams that Schoonover was secretly an undercover FBI agent, killed on assignment as the FBI was trying to infiltrate NASCAR. It was ironic, considering his crew chief Bobby Hudson in 1980 was at the center of a high-profile investigation and arrested when the FBI charged him and others with buying stolen cars. There were also rumors that no one claimed his body from the morgue. In reality, he was buried in Ohio on Thursday, a day he'd intended to announce his plans to run for Rookie of the Year in 1985. On that day across the country, U.S. Marshals were in the garage area in Riverside looking to seize a team's race cars. Warner Hodgdon's business empire was collapsing. The FBI had charged officials at his company with bid rigging and kickbacks related to California government contracts. While Hodgdon himself was not charged with any criminal wrongdoing, he and his company were named as defendants in a federal lawsuit in Los Angeles seeking over $30 million in damages. A judge then issued injunctions to freeze Hodgdon's assets. Fearing that the racing equipment might be confiscated when they went to California, the Junior Johnson team erased Hodgdon's name and sent their cars to Riverside in an old transporter and borrowed another from Darrell Waltrip. Once they had arrived, U.S. Marshals entered the garage looking to confiscate the cars of Waltrip and Bonnet. Through the help of lawyers, Johnson was able to explain that the cars were not owned by Hodgdon, instead that he owned stock in the team, and despite him being a stockholder, the equipment itself was not something he owned or something creditors could seize. Within the next few months, Hodgdon filed for bankruptcy, claiming $66 million in debts and only $17 million in assets. Johnson would repurchase Hodgdon's shares of the team at bankruptcy court. Hodgdon's fall had implications for the tracks that he owned. Bristol Motor Speedway was foreclosed upon. Nashville Fairgrounds was removed from the 1985 Cup schedule and never returned in the following 40 years. Just 1 year earlier, Warner Hodgson was a figure that owned tracks, teams, and sponsored races, but by the end of 1984, he was gone for good. Atlanta was a chance for both teams to put the championship out of reach, but each struggled. Labonte entered the final race with a 42-point lead over Harry Gant, the smallest margin since he left Bristol in August. Bill Elliott made up 107 points on Labonte over the last 2 races and entered Riverside with an outside chance of winning the title.
Terry Labonte had a big day Friday at Riverside Raceway. First, he celebrated his 28th birthday. Then he hit the wall and won the pole position for the Winston Western 500. But today will be the most important racing day of his life, one that could bring him fame, fortune, and a national championship.
This is the Winston Cup, the emblem of success in Grand National stock car racing and a symbol of how far this sport has come.
The field is just coming off pit road. Everybody beginning to move. Looks like all the cars are coming out for the start.
It appears there may be a problem for Harry Gant, Ken. The report from the racetrack is that the right rear tire on Gant's car has equalized.
Here is Gant, number 33. Drawing on to pit road. Here is Gant now coming back on, and he'll have to come from the rear of the field. The race to decide the championship is underway as they dive into turn number 1. Give it to Waltrip. Waltrip jumps into the lead. Here comes Tim Richmond, number 27, Richmond, in the Raymond Beetle car, going for second place.
As Harry Gant tries to scramble, Bobby Allison dives around and takes the lead away from Darrell Waltrip. As we watch this battle for the lead, Kenley, that third-place car, Harry Gant, it's really the first opportunity he's had today to run strong in front of Terry Labonte. Gant-Labonte is your championship story. Harry Gant now is about 50 yards out of the lead, and Terry Labonte is just 1 position out of his magic number. He has to finish 7th here today. If Gant could go to the front, get around Waltrip and Allison, take the lead, and should something happen to Labonte to drop him back a position or 2, that man right there, Harry Gant, and the number 33 Skull Bandit, could pull out the Cinderella story here and win the Grand National Championship.
Trouble on Darrell Waltrip's car.
Car number 11 falling back. Number 22 drawing away, and he's spinning. And there's oil on the track. Here comes Earnhardt spinning. Earnhardt spinning the number 3 car as the engine goes away on car number 11, and we have an oil down situation, and there's still no sign of caution. Showing sparks as he goes up into turn number 1, Boddine, and flashing his colors, Terry Labonte, who must feel very good about himself now as the laps run out. Look at Labonte. What a champion he's going to make. The quiet Texan on the attack. Darkness on the desert out here in California as Allison stays in front and the laps trickle away. Sparks flying. You'd think they'd have some bombs to go off and some fireworks when this one's over. Here comes 5 closing. On the outside, Boddine is making his move. He's going by Allison, and here comes Allison. He's going to pit. Right front tire is down. They're already setting up for victory lane. Allison comes in as the darkness gets deeper, and Boddine is now in front.
White flag,
White
1 lap to go.
out. There it is. Down to the final lap. Terry Labonte on his way to winning the championship. Checkered flag ready to fall. The winner of the Winston Western 500 today at Riverside, California, is Jeff Boddine. Terry Labonte, he has been swarmed by well-wishers down along pit road here as darkness settles in over the Riverside International Raceway. You can see some of the lights on over in the garage area. So the story of the 1984 season and the Western 500 has been complete. Boddine wins the race, and Terry Labonte, the quiet Texan over there in the darkness, is the champion.
For Terry Labonte, it was his first championship, which came 2 days after his 28th birthday. For crew chief Dale Inman, it was his 8th title, a record that has never been equaled. It was the only championship for car owner Billy Hagan. At the awards banquet in Manhattan on December 7th, Winston made 2 major announcements for 1985. One was the creation of the Winston All-Star Race, to be held at Charlotte Motor Speedway in May. Second was the creation of the Winston Million, an offer which promised $1 million to a driver who could win 3 out of 4 of NASCAR's crown jewel races: the Daytona 500, the Winston 500 at Talladega, the World 600, and and the Southern 500. The prize was monumental. The annual salary of a top-paid NFL player at the time was only slightly over $1 million. The money reinforced the idea that NASCAR was now a major figure in American sports. In all, 1984 was a season for NASCAR that was messy at times. Teams were unhappy, cheating was a game, and the sport was evolving. But the year was always exciting. On-track action was fierce, and in a lot of ways, 1984 was a turning point that shaped NASCAR for years to come.